Hello and welcome to WJTS-Inform. We are honored once again as we have our weekly visit with State Senator Mark Messmer. I forget as he moves from one house to the other.
That's okay.
A little difference, I'm sure, between the two houses and how they run.
They're pretty similar. One of the biggest differences we process about the same number of bills, but since we have less members, we have less amendments, which means we have less time caucusing to prepare, to understand amendments, and things go smoother on the floor, and we get done a lot faster.
Well, that's good. And
that's good.
Hey, we've got some things that have been done so far this session. First of all, we're going to talk about education.
Okay.
And the governor signed the bill concerning the ISTEP reduction. Let's talk about that.
Yep, it was Senate Bill 62 at the end of January when the Department of Education Superintendent Ritz said that the tests are going to be, X amount of hours longer. Well, then we began to dive into why. And some of the things they could remove from the test, without legislative action. Some of them, we had to adopt, changes in our state law to make sure that, if they made changes to the test, that they had, legal authority to do it. So Senate Bill 62 eliminated, there was I-Read 3, which had been put into for the third graders, as part of ISTEP. That could be taken out without legislative change. So that was done already a couple weeks ago, agreed to. There was also components of the test that had, some social studies components in it. That was about 2 hours of the test, and Senate Bill 62 gave them the authority to pull that out, gave them the authority to take out some of the pilot testing. Basically got it down to where, they've got the authority to cut that test in about half, which gets it back to, pretty well closer to what it's always been. And some of it took legislative changes, some of it were just done administratively. But as of Monday evening, that bill passed the House and the Senate and was signed by the governor, and will take effect, for this year's ISTEP. So
it's not like some of the bills when they're passed. Okay, it's July 1st is when they take effect.
Typical.
This is not
immediate.
The case. This is immediate.
Yep.
Right now.
Yep. So the governor signed it Monday night, and gives them, and they'd been working with McGraw-Hill, over the past month to, okay, what can we do without law change? What do we need? Even though they were waiting for us to get everything signed Monday night, they had planned everything that they needed to do to get the test down to what we need to have to comply with federal mandates for student evaluation, to make sure we get our federal money, which is can be about 15% of our overall funding budget, is to make sure, so we couldn't really jeopardize that. So we had to make sure everything we did complied with our No Child Left Behind waiver, has all the mandates covered for for those items, and so we should have a whole lot less stressful students in a couple weeks when the ISTEPs kick in.
Now this concerns ISTEP. Was there also a bill that concerned testing in the coming years?
Yeah, Senate Bill 566, another hugely bipartisan effort, passed on the, I don't know if it was 46 or 47. We had one member who had to leave early the day we voted on this, but 46-3, I think, or 47-3. And the three who voted against it were Republicans, so it had 100% bipartisan support. It'll get rid of ISTEP plus, it'll get rid of I-Read 3, and it'll replace those with testing more like we had when we were in school. Back when I was in school, it was called the Iowa Basics. But it was a national standardized model that gets done what we need done to make sure that our kids are progressing and moving along, and it gives you nationalized equivalency. If it's a third grader, it'll tell you, okay, they're reading at a third grade level, or they're reading at a fourth grade level, or eighth grade. It gives you those types of national comparisons. It's a standardized exam. It'll be off the shelf. It'll be much easier for all the schools to implement and simplify the process a lot, and takes a lot of the process of where we went the past few years with ISTEP, and rather than having our own model and our own testing and paying lots of extra money for that, we're going to go back to the way things used to be. And so Senate Bill 566 will do that. And it also had some other things on giving schools a little more flexibility on how they just do day-to-day operations, and to meet all the mandates. Gives them a little more flexibility in their daily scheduling. and a part that I'm sure the teachers will like, it'll allow half of their performance bonus, which, when teachers are graded, good or excellent, they're eligible for raises, and it allows half of each of those bonuses each year to become part of their base salary. So it gives them kind of a way to get their annual raises done more evenly and more fairly, I'd say, to the teachers.
And this came out of the Senate.
Yep.
It's now in the House.
Goes to the
So
House.
will the House do anything with it, or do you think it'll pretty well just go through like that?
I'm pretty sure it'll get a smooth acceptance in the House. There was some other House bills that went down to defeat this past week that were really, kind of taking things the other direction of what the Senate, did on teacher evaluations and testing, and so I was happy to see, some of their bills that were really kind of dragging things, more the opposite direction of what Senate Bill 566 was, and being that some of those other House bills went down to defeat, I would say, that pretty much tells me, and we've sent that bill to the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, not to the education chairman, so we've done that with a plan of attack to try to meet this thing head on and get a smooth acceptance on the House side when it gets there.
Okay, and are there any other education bills that are of significance? Or I know there's a lot that goes on.
Those were the biggest ones that passed. There was another one that passed that I didn't vote for because it was a 239-page bill that had a lot of elimination of stuff in it, maybe outdated regulations, and that was supposedly what it was going to do was just strike out code sites that weren't relevant anymore. But anytime you have a bill that touches 79 areas of code or 75 areas of code and 239 pages, there's always the bitter pill that's tucked into the middle of that. And the more we talked about that on the Senate floor, I'm not saying that bill, Senate Bill 500, might come back after having some House amendments, that it might be a point where I can vote for it. But whether there was 70 to 75 might have been really good, but maybe 5 of them were not so good, and unless if there's potential for something to have been hidden in there that maybe wasn't extremely good, one that typically when we get those 200, 300, 400, 500 page bills, I'm more apt to vote no, because you're just not always sure what's hidden in those deep layers.
Your eyes kind of glaze over by the time you get past page 100.
Well, I read through the recap of what all those 75 items were, and there were some that I didn't really think needed to be taken out. Some of them that dealt with bus driver contracts and things, and I thought, why are we dealing with that? And why is that really? There was probably some good stuff in it, but always seemed the more we debated it on the floor, the less comfortable I got with it. Where it's at now, it doesn't mean that bill could get amended and come back for a final vote. But kind of went along the path of trying to streamline and get rid of unnecessary things. But some of the things that were in that one, might be good, might not. Who knows? But I think that's the effort this year. The House did pass the budget, the first half, and has a significant amount of extra money for all the schools in our area. Dollars per student. They raised the base amount per student about $500, per student, and then you've got the complexity index that gets added to that. And most of the schools, in our area are going to get significantly more money with the new funding formula. That'll be something it'll be potentially changed up until the end of session when the new budget forecasts come out in the middle of April. They'll do the fine tuning to that. But my guess is, if the numbers aren't as strong in April, there's probably other things that'll get cut or cut back on. If our budget projections don't stay as solid as they are, and, my guess is they'll try to keep the K through 12 where it's at. And if things don't pan out, there's other things that'll fall by the wayside. And if funding goes up, they could add a little bit more to the K through 12 base. We're looking at adding $470 million, more money to K through 12 next year, which will be, a nice addition. We did $390 million increase the last budget cycle, so we're getting to the point where we're we're going to have significant more money in all the schools' budgets this coming cycle.
So that budget's been passed by the
By
Senate?
by the House.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the House. Okay,
Yep.
so now it comes to you.
Comes to the
okay,
Senate.
then you, all right. So now you get to look at it and
Yep, the Appropriations Committee will start meeting next week, and they'll start fine tuning things, and then at the end when the budget forecast comes in, the Senate kind of finishes their work on it. It'll go to conference committee and be one of the, probably as always, one of the last things we deal with on April 29th.
Are there any real struggles with it?
No.
So, I mean, some years there's a struggle. But
I mean, the biggest, I mean, we put about $400 million more in highway funding, above and beyond what's coming from fuel taxes, which is, going to be, I mean, we're going to continue, that'll continue to solidify what local, units of government get, for bridge and road maintenance at the county and city level, and what the state, gets, for INDOT. There'll be, I mean, education increase and highway funding increase are the two biggest, increase. Probably the parts that'll get nitpicked and squeezed and squashed to the very end, just whether it's state colleges or, the capital money that gets plunked into different projects. I mean, that'll be the one that'll continue to get fine-tuned right down to the end. And if there's more money, some will get added. If there's less money, they'll have a priority scale on maybe 10 or 15 different, building projects for universities or state administration. I mean, there'll be kind of a pairing list, and if the money's there, they'll grow it. If there's not, they'll shrink it, and that'll be the fine tuning that really takes place right at the end, on the capital dollars to maybe IU or Purdue or Ivy Tech or ISU. I mean, those are the ones that everybody's got their wish list, and when the money's not there, they're the ones that usually get told wait 2 more years. So,
other things that you'd like to bring up?
Well, we had some other good bills the first half of session. One that I was a co-sponsor on was Senate Bill 436, and that put the freeze on agriculture land assessing for a year to give what they call the Purdue formula a chance to go back and rewrite it and make it more, make those property values, more in relation to, to the current crop prices and current interest rates, and so that'll be a good win for for the farmers to try to get that thing more in line with where the way that thing is set up. There's going to be several years of the old high crop prices that keep their land values trending up at a time when crop prices are going down. So we need to make that more more in relation to what the current market is and more predictable for them. And then some bills that I had that I was real happy with that passed. I had my data warehouse tax exemption bill passed this week. I had a right to life bill that I had passed this week. That there was a federal court injunction dealing with the chemical abortion regulations that we passed 2 years ago. But it was written, that bill was written, the federal judge says was too restrictive to just the Planned Parenthood clinics. It ended up being applicable only to them. We had to broaden it to where it applies to any doctor or hospital, or clinic that does 5 or more chemical abortion prescriptions per year, that all the standards then apply to everybody, uniformly. So we couldn't isolate one type of clinic or one type of group. It more broadly applied and tightened up. No matter who's turning in reports on terminated pregnancies, we wanted a little bit more data sent to the Department of Health on record keeping for everybody. So that one passed, and then I had the couple that passed early that we've talked in earlier weeks. The farm wine bill, happy with that, and one that's going to help the library board here in Jasper if they didn't move ahead with the project, and then the propane supplier liability bill. So I had 5 bills that passed. A couple of them that got amended into other bills. So. 7 of my 10 made it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was
that's
happy with
ratio.
that. Yeah.
All right, well, Mark, thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome.
Our guest has been State Senator Mark Messmer, who represents this area. We thank you for watching WJTS Inform, but we certainly appreciate you coming in weekly and kind of getting us up to date on what's happening with the legislature.
Happy to do it.
Oh, and one final thing. The Sunday alcohol sales is gone.
It died in the house.
It's not going to happen, right?
Yep. We'll have to try it again next year, I guess.
Seems to be the history of that bill. It never seems to make it too far.
Yep. It's a tough one. It's got so many competing interests on the package stores versus the big retailers. It's really competing interests that you've got to. I mean, it's hard to move a peg and not impact everybody differently. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Senator. We thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We're local people watching local people.